It is now my pleasure to welcome our first panel of the day. And that is our Overcoming Challenges and Setbacks panel. So welcome moderator Jill McAllister, as well as our panelists, Cheryl and Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Bree, and thanks to everyone for being here with us today. We have such a great opportunity to get together, and Nettie did such a good job too of explaining what our next topic is about, all about setbacks. I mean, we all have them, right? There's personal setbacks, professional setbacks, emotional, or maybe something that's just entirely unique to you. We all know life doesn't come with an instruction manual, unfortunately. So everyone needs to think about how to approach these challenges differently. But we also have such an opportunity to learn from one another. And certainly, as Nettie just alluded to, too, we have such a vast and varied and unpredictable world in agriculture. So we really have so many different professional, personal, environmental, and even global challenges that can really affect our livelihoods and even our day-to-day lives. So it's such an important topic, and I'm excited to have our two panelists join us today to dive into this subject. Kimberly Kathleen is the Associate Director with the Horticultural and Environmental Sciences Innovation Center at Niagara College. And Cheryl Warkentine has been a partner on her family's dairy farm since she was just 20 years old. So she's super passionate about sustainable farming practices. So welcome, ladies. Is there anything you'd like to share about yourselves before we get started with our first question?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jill, for that wonderful introduction. I think just that a little bit about what we do at Niagara College in relation to horticulture. So we're working with businesses to essentially help them bring new technologies, new innovations, new products in that horticultural space to help them bring them to commercialization. So we work with them to help validate technologies and develop them. And I've been working in this area for close to 20 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And Cheryl, tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, after listening to Nettie's address, I've been one of the fortunate girls that has had a father empower me and allow me to have shares in the family business, and have always felt that my voice had equity and value. And so I've been lucky. So yes,
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, well, we farm a dairy farm here close to Landmark, Manitoba.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Cheryl.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Kimberly. We'll just try and go back and forth here, but also if you ladies want to jump in and feed off something the other person said, please do. I want it to be a fulsome discussion for sure. First, let's just talk about challenges, and maybe there's something that each of you could outline that you found to be one of your most significant challenges that you faced in your career or the path in your career. So great to hear support that we've had along the way, but sometimes we can learn a lot from those moments that don't quite go as well as we'd expect. Kimberly, let's start with you.
Sure, yeah. So 11 years ago, I was given the opportunity to pursue my Master's of Science degree. And I would say that this is probably the most significant challenge that I've experienced, but also the greatest achievement that I've experienced in my career. So I worked on my studies part-time. I was a mature student. I was working a full-time job in horticultural research, and I was a relatively new mom. I had a 2-year-old daughter at home when I first took on the challenge. So it took me almost 4 years to complete my degree. And there were many, many late nights and long nights up studying and writing, staying late into the night after work, getting to know the cleaning staff. And then my weekends were spent in the lab at the university, but often alone as it was the weekend. Students were not usually in the lab on the weekends. So, and then any time that I had at home was spent focusing on my family. So that meant that I had to say no to a lot of opportunities, a lot of social invitations. It also meant that I couldn't do all the things that I was used to doing, making that special dessert for Christmas, hosting the family for events, and throwing the perfectly themed birthday parties. I had to decide to let all those things go for a time so that I could spend those precious moments with my family or with working towards my goal. So as I mentioned, I was a mature student, which means I didn't automatically fit in with everyone in the lab. I was a little bit different, a little bit older, so I had to refresh and remind myself also about all the things that I'd forgotten after 11 years since I completed my bachelor's degree. And then I also had many individuals in my professional life who were not at all supportive of my studies. And rather than encouraging me, they made the process a lot more difficult. So I was also often feeling overwhelmed. The stress of the degree was then compounded with the stress of the resilience and the challenges that I was experiencing from people professionally. And I would have thought that those people would have been my greatest supporters. I can remember at one point confiding in a superior regarding the struggle that I was facing. And rather than helping me find a solution, that individual encouraged me to just quit my degree, even though I was already 2 years into the process. So I felt very alone and sometimes almost even punished for pursuing my degree. And I did not have support in my professional life to achieve those goals. However, through it all, my faith in God and my family kept me moving forward. My husband was an invaluable support. We talked about supports, Nettie did, and I couldn't have done it without him. So he stepped in, he took on the bulk of maintaining the home, and then he assisted greatly with caring for our daughter. And in the end, took over 4 years, but I successfully completed my degree, and I was honored with the Distinguished Graduate Award for the highest average in my graduating class in biological sciences.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
that's impressive.
my biggest challenge, but also my greatest accomplishment.
And how did you keep yourself rooted in moving forward and sort of ignoring those naysayers? And you talked about the support system. Did you do some self-talk too to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to give this up because I deserve this, right? Sometimes we have to shelve that guilt of not being able to do everything that we would like to do because nobody has that amount of energy.
Absolutely. There was definitely guilt that I had to put off to look at, because you want to do all those things and be able to, bake the cookies and do all the experiences. But and then with everyone coming against you at the same time, there was a lot of positive self-talk. My husband was a huge encouragement, and really being able to try to keep my focus directed ahead and on the goal, and knowing that when I spend those moments with my daughter, that I'm present in those moments, and there's still special moments, and she's not gonna be upset if I didn't plan the perfect birthday party, and that there will be a time for me to be able to do those things as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Cheryl, I'd love to hear about your challenge in your career that you've overcome and what you've learned from it.
Yeah, my challenge is a little different than hers, but in 2008, we were expecting our fifth child, and seeding had started, and my 3.5-year-old was involved in a farm accident. And that meant weeks in the ICU, and my husband would plant corn all day, and then he'd come spend the night with my son at the ICU, and I could go sleep because I was expecting in a few weeks. And it was a hard time. And we really, similar to Kimberly, you realize your need for God, and you need him every minute, you need him every second. And we managed to make it through there, and we were the fortunate parents that could bring our child home from the ICU. And he's a busting, booming junior A hockey player right now. You'd never know. But it took a toll. And for the next year, I battled anxiety. I battled the price of all of that stress, and while running our family business at the same time. My husband and I would do payroll there in the ICU waiting room, and trying to balance the workload and all of that all at the same time. But I will say that is an experience I don't ever want taken from me. It's a medal I carry, a badge I've earned, and it's a reality that there's more to this life than the weather, breakdowns on the field. It brings everything into perspective. And so some of the things I've learned from there is we need God, and God gives us the strength to walk through these things. And it's not always easy, but he doesn't give us more than we can handle. Some of the other things we've learned through it, I think, is get involved with people who are facing adversity, because it gives you a healthy perspective of what life is really all about. And specifically, Tuesday mornings is my day to take my best friend in to cancer care every Tuesday morning. That is the best therapy and focus a person can have every week, and realize, you know what? I can be thankful. I have a lot to be thankful for. So there's just a little snippet.
For you then, what is life all about? How would you describe that that vision for what really matters?
Well, I'm not perfect. We lose sight of it. Farmers, if anybody on this panel knows, farmers are aggressive, competitive. We want to always reach for the next big mountain. And but the perspective that, you know what, there's more to life than this. We have relationships we have to maintain. We have a responsibility to the world. It isn't just about our own personal gain. And if all the crops fail that year, it's going to be okay.
Life goes on.
Yeah.
Did you come out the other side of the illness with your son being a different person then? Or was it just your ability to
100%.
focus
Yes.
values?
Yeah. Yes. And in that, you also make decisions on how you're going to empower those around you. You know, when you face different stressors and stuff, you can't carry it all. And we had such a network of people that helped us out, brought us meals, and wrapped their arms around us during that journey. And going forward now, I hope that I'm also being that person to support those around us, because we're all on this road together. And anybody in the farming community knows that we are a tight-knit group and we can support each other in that. And yeah, specifically though, getting through some of that anxiety and some of that, regular exercise, a deep faith, empowering your managers and your children with more responsibility, that it's not all on your shoulders, being willing to give up and letting some other people fail and learning. Those have all been useful tools to move ahead.
Farming is unique in that when you have a personal stress, it's hard for it not to bleed into your professional life as farmers, because they coexist often in the same space, and your workplace is where you live and all of this. So is there any way to try and compartmentalize, or is it just about working through that in the moment? And yes, they're always going to coexist, the stress of work and the stress of what's going on in your personal life.
So that is the best and worst part about farming. The best part about farming is you are your own boss. You can make your own decisions. You can make your own goals. You can dream and have your own visions. Those are awesome. But then it bleeds, you're completely right. It's what you think about at night. It's there in the evening. And I have distinct memories sitting in our Pontiac car in the garage when I was 12 years old with our whole family waiting to go to Banff. But my dad was still fixing the barn cleaner in the barn for the worker that was going to work that week. And so I think the key is to have an attitude of gratefulness, because most people don't get that privilege to make their own decisions, to be their own boss, all of that. So to have a healthy perspective and be thankful. And yeah, same as before, empowering those around you as much as you can. And I've had to let go of some of the things my mom did. My mom sewed all our clothes. She baked all the buns. She canned everything. My mom was a beast. She could do it all. And I've had to let go that I don't have to do it all like my mom did. And I've even hired a cleaning lady. Believe it or not, I don't know if I want to say that here.
Good for you.
But you know, you do different things to try to make it possible to do things well and have a healthy life balance. Yep.
Absolutely.
And dedicating that part, I'm allowed to go to the gym and exercise for an hour without any bugging. So,
yeah, we all need a moment to ourselves. I think that is so important. Kimberly, what are your thoughts on that, of the figuring out how to balance professional stress and personal stress? Do you have any strategies that you use? You've certainly, when you walk through your professional career and earning your degrees and being where you are now, that's a tremendous workload to try and figure out. So what are your strategies for managing all of that life can throw at you?
Yeah, Cheryl and I definitely have different backgrounds, but I think it's good to hear from different perspectives. So it's a bit different than being on the farm. I can't even imagine. But definitely there's a tendency for the two to bleed together. You know, professional Kimberly and personal life Kimberly are not two different people. So one doesn't end in the evening when I come home, and another one start when I walk through the office doors. So it's really important to, I think, be authentic at work, like to be an actual person, but also to have a balance where that doesn't steal your focus. So for me, I really try to not have those challenges steal my focus in either atmosphere. So what I try to remind myself about is being the best version of myself in either one of those different situations. And when I'm at work, to really, personal life is still there, but let's give all my energy to the task at hand. And then when I'm at home, of course, work comes home with you, but how can I be present in the moment, and focus on the people that are around me in my personal life? So work in progress, but try to remind myself of that.
And Cheryl was just talking about picking and choosing what you are going to put your energy into. And so one of the things is asking for help. Hey, I could use some housekeeping help, or I could use someone to pick up the kids, or whatever it might be. Is that something that you use as well, is reaching out to others for support? You said your husband is tremendous support for you.
Yes, he definitely is. And I also recently hired a cleaning lady, so that could be very helpful.
It's the trend.
It's life changing. But yeah, sometimes you have to ask for help, and it can be hard, right? It puts you in a really vulnerable position because you have to admit that you can't do everything. And so I think that we need to work around normalizing that. No, we don't have to be superwoman. There shouldn't be an expectation that we have to take on absolutely everything and then still be able to give the very best of ourselves to everyone. So one thing that I try to remind myself, and I work to do, is to surround myself with an amazing team. And so that team, I try to make sure that they're made up of individuals who have strengths in areas where maybe they're not my strength. And so then together we can complement each other. And in the end, hopefully we can, as a group, be successful. And then hopefully you don't have to do it all.
Yes, it works much better when we can work together and build a good team. That's such a great point. Nettie was talking about this patriarchal society, and I'm curious, in your line of work, Kimberly, if you have ever run into challenges. Is it more of a male-dominated area that you work in, or has that not been an issue for you as a smart woman?
It definitely is. And so in my career, at one point, I was doing the research, and I was out in the field. And so going to the events, and it was always just white pickup trucks. It was in California, and mostly men at all the events. And then even now that I've moved into the management of the research, it's a science field, and which tends to be dominated by men. So yes, I'm often the only woman in the room, even on research projects, meeting with the companies as well. So it's an ongoing thing, but I think it's really important to remind yourself when you are in the room that you need to be there, that your opinion is valuable, that, like Nettie was saying, that we bring something different to the conversation, and it's something valuable that we bring. And studies have shown that having a woman in the boardroom or a woman at the meeting changes the dynamic of that conversation. And so even though sometimes it's intimidating to be there, it's important to continue to push yourself to maybe not assert yourself, but to insert yourself, I suppose, and to be confident that there's a place for you at the table.
Yeah, contribute what you know, and as you said earlier, show up as your best self in that space. And that's such great advice. Thank you. Cheryl, maybe in that same vein around being a female, in your case on the farm, is there anything that you find extra challenging because you aren't the man of the house? And you mentioned your dad being a strong role model, so I feel like you're off to a good start, or we're off to a good start with that great support.
Well, I'd be lying if it doesn't stand in front of you in different situations, but I have found through our industry that culture is changing. And I know we had one banker that I felt like didn't care one whit what I said.
Yeah.
But the next one, what a treat. To talk on level ground, and you know what I mean, be respected back and forth. And I know I've mentioned it before, I just don't know how to mention it well, but don't give up if somebody gives you a wall, because there are good people in the industry, and there are people willing to already give you an ear and treat you with respect. And so I've never thought that being pushy helps my cause. I like to fly a little bit under the radar and gain my respect that way. But that's not always easy. Doesn't always work that way. But I don't know. I don't
In
know.
your time,
Sorry, keep going.
In your time farming, do you feel like there has been a shift in a more positive direction around inclusivity of women at the same level as men? We've always contributed in important and valuable ways to the farm. They just don't seem to be as recognized as being the official farmer.
That is, I really liked what Nettie said there. It's a matter of who's been counted. And my husband said when this interview first came up and some of those questions, and I was struggling with him, but he said, Cheryl, there is no family farm without a solid woman behind it. And that's always been the case. They just maybe haven't been counted. And so, yes, I think there is a bit of a shift. And I guess I'm not so pushy about women's rights, I guess, because I haven't experienced, my dad has been different. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I've been able to have those chances. I've been able to, he saw something in me that I could bring to the farm, and saw value in what value in what I brought to the table, I guess. And even in amongst that, it is challenging. Like, it's not that easy. I had 5 children. How did that impact how I added into the farm and my weight I carried? Do you know what I mean? And so these are not completely black and white answers, I guess, but I was fortunate to have a father and a very, very good brother who's our partner, and my husband and his wife, of course. But you know what I mean? Who it worked. Somehow we made it work, and there was, and yeah.
It's a wonderful, positive story, and really speaks
Mm-hmm.
to that need for the great support system. And if you have it in your family, that's amazing. And it's empowerment, right? If we can empower each other, whether it's the men or women in our lives, we can all rise together to really achieve great things. So thank you, Cheryl.
But
I do
don't
want to
discredit the one who isn't at the forefront. Do you know what I mean? The one who,
yes,
because she's bringing value that, like Nettie said, isn't being counted. But just because she's not at the forerunner doesn't mean that she isn't half of the weight behind it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good point. Yeah. I do want to open up the questions to the audience. If there's anybody that has any questions, you can pop them into the Q&A, and we can ask some questions. Let's see. There's one here from Ina. Are regulations, rules too binding and restricting for the smaller operators, men and women and families trying to raise food in their region?
I'm sorry, Jill, I'm just popping in to say that these are remaining.
Those are the old questions.
Notes. I did not want to delete them right away, but these 2 are remaining notes.
Okay, I was going to say, this is a different topic. All right, well, if anybody has any questions, please put them into the Q&A there, and we'd be happy to have our panelists, Cheryl and Kimberly, answer them for you. I think you both talked a little bit about this, but I'd love to hear a little bit more, Kimberly, about ways that you've paid it forward in your life after going through such an impressive career trajectory and getting support from others. Is there a way that you like to pay it forward a little bit to help other people who are starting out or like you, jumping back in education? You know, we all find our way on career paths in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my role at the college, I get the opportunity to interact with a lot of students. I actually hire them to join our team. Oftentimes they're mature students, a little bit different than the university environment. A lot of people are coming back, they're trying a second career. And so I make time to interact with them on a regular basis, to offer them support, and then also understanding, as I know they're carrying out their studies and also working with us at the same time. Not intentionally, but I have a lot of women on my team. So I had that opportunity to encourage them as women in a scientific field as well. I also recently served as chair on the board of directors for a local charity that provides lunches in schools for kids who are in need. And when I was in that role, I really encouraged women to join the board and then supported them when they were on the board because they were usually new and had not been in a director role before. So encouraging them in that, and then also encouraging them to have the confidence to think about taking on the vice chair role or maybe the chair role, and be able to grow them up in that way. And then through my church, I've participated in a lot of women's groups, leading them, and then just making time to really walk with them in life and encourage them and support them along their journey.
Super. Thank you, Kimberly. Here's a question from the audience that I'll direct to you, Kimberly, briefly networking was brought up, specifically working with other people whose skills complement yours. How important have you found your network in being resilient during tough times? What is an example of something you have learned and found value in from your network?
Network is super, super important. But as I mentioned, part of my network was not terribly supportive during the time. However, there were other people in my network outside of where I was professionally that were very helpful and very encouraging during that time. I think support systems are crucial, and your network can be something that's hugely valuable to you when you're going through that sort of a situation. I think look for support systems wherever they might be, and as you go through challenges, you're going to start to see where those are. I mean, for me, when I went through that situation, immediately, like my family and my faith, it made me aware that those were the support systems in my life. And maybe for some people, it can be their network. But then once you realize what those are, then you know where you can rely and what you can go to when you end up back in another challenge in your life.
Absolutely. Thank you. Cheryl, here's a question for you. How did you manage to balance your role on the farm with your role as a mom? I'm looking forward to that chapter of my life, but managing a large farm and large family seems daunting at times.
Well, I don't always balance it very well, but I think you cut yourself some slack. Number one, your house doesn't have to be the cleanest. And you try to do as I'm not exactly sure how to give answers. You just try to cut yourself some slack, and you maybe don't bake everything from scratch, and you find yourself a local place that makes homemade casseroles that are amazing. So,
Prioritization and delegation.
yeah, exactly. There you go. You're answering the questions for me. But yeah, you know what? It's not always easy, but I'll tell you this. You have a large family, and that is going to be the biggest blessing later when you start empowering those kids and giving them responsibility. And that is the beauty of being on a farm. You can give your kids responsibility at a young age. And I don't mean unsafe responsibility, but responsibility. And you will see your kids rise up and achieve things that are unbelievable. And they, like Paul and I, 10 years ago, you'd ask us, are you going to keep growing? And we'd be like, no, we're in over our heads. And to have that young energy now, we have a few young adults that are just buying into, like, so excited about farming, and suddenly that manure pumping 12 million gallons is not a big scary task. And we've got people who have the energy and the willpower and the might to do it. Then all of a sudden, great, this is awesome. You know what I mean? So it's hard when they're young. Those are hard years, but it's the biggest blessing you'll have later.
So maybe do you have some advice for this person about getting into those early years of child rearing and getting them involved on the farm and getting excited and interested in helping out? I think lots of parents struggle with like where they're getting their kids to do things. I mean, that's part of parenting. It's never easy, but do you have any advice for making it easier?
Well, I think a key to that is chores that are regular every day. And we were a large farm, and because my son had been involved in a farm accident, I was very, very aware of the dangers of the farm. And so my husband had a bit the idea, you know what, we're going to get these kids some chickens of their own here. And they had to go every day, -30. They had to put their snowsuits on, and they had to go pick their eggs. And they brought them in, had to wash them and market them and whatever. And it doesn't seem big, but just that feat of having to do it every day, no matter what, that already starts that trend. And it's almost easier if they have to do it every day, because then you don't fight with them. What? I have to go do this, right? So some of the regular, every day, this is what we do. And so we even gave them a few calves here that was, so our yard is not right on the farmyard. So we could give them a bit of a sheltered farming taste without all the dangers of tractors and stuff, and then it would grow, right? And my son had his little plot of wheat he seeded and alfalfa, and it grows out of that, right? But yeah, start with something regular every day that's not too big, not too overwhelming. And my dad would have also said, never expect that your kid will go weed the whole garden on his own, work alongside of them. That would have always been my dad's motto. Don't expect that kids will learn how to work without being willing to get dirty and work alongside of them. So if you're willing to work alongside of your kids, they will surprise you.
And on that note, Alexandra's asking, are your children still involved on the farm, and what are their ages? And do you have any girls involved?
So my oldest daughter is Caitlin, and she's actually in vet school in the University of Saskatoon right now. So she's going to graduate in June of next year. And I sure hope she's going to be involved on the farm. It would save us a lot of money. No, not just that. But no, she is very excited about farming, very excited about large animal, veterinarian, and her trajectory. How that all happened was, I'd just say that was God's doing, how that timing was. But anyway, and then yes, so then I have 3 boys in the middle. They're all involved in the farm. One kind of heads our green division and makes a lot of the decisions and combining and all of that and spraying. And then the next son, he's still playing junior hockey, but he's very involved. He's the guy that's not afraid of manure pumping and anything dirty and hard work. That's his task. Pours a lot of concrete. And then the next one is just getting involved, just graduated this June. And then my youngest one is a daughter, and she's still in grade 11. So yes, she's involved, but now she's working hard on her schoolwork and stuff like that. So
well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, Cheryl and Kimberly as well. You're both smart, accomplished women and super inspiring with your messages of overcoming obstacles and living our best lives. So thank you so much for your time today. And I will toss it back over to our MCs to bring us with the next panel.
Thanks so much, Jill. And thank you, Cheryl and Kimberly.